Well, it's 10 o'clock. Time for another Fireside Chat with the Experts. Here with Dr. Bill Cardoso. Very happy to have another special guest with us this week. We have Jeff Mason from NeoTech here in San Marcos. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit for our audience?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Mason. I'm the plant manager, GM of a facility for NeoTech. We're a contract manufacturer with 13 locations globally. I reside in San Marcos, just down the street from Creative Electron. So,
Yeah.
Our neighbors. Good to join you today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time. I know you're very busy in this current atmosphere out there with everything going on. We have a lot more on the work on our plates to keep everything moving, right?
It's not like there's a pandemic or anything, David. Come on.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's going to be a very short chat then.
It might be a week before a holiday as well. Right?
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah, I got a shorter month this month, right? So the topic of conversation today is how COVID is affecting manufacturing, particularly here in San Diego. The California government response, the local response, and then of course our personal or professional responses at our facilities. So, this happened. It's really started affecting us back in March. There's quite a bit going on, a lot of unknowns, big unknowns, right? Kind of, I think a lot more fear at that point than we're at now, fortunately. But maybe Bill, you can start with how we at Creative Electron handled the start of it, and then Jeff will ask you the same question.
It was an interesting going back to February. I mean, February we were all together, or early March we were all together in Florida. Remember, for the SMTA officers meeting?
That's right. Yeah,
we're all together, and life was good. And the COVID wave was, hit Europe. Italy was shutting down, and it was moving west. And for me, the biggest, and then that's when we start planning, right, and figure out what we're going to do if we're going to shut down, if we have, if we have to shut down the facility. And for me, the pivotal point was when the sheriff department in Alameda County went to Tesla's facility, right? Knocked on the door and told them, hey, you got to shut down. When that happened, I figured out, okay, this is very serious and it's going to happen very soon. So I think it was March 19th when the governor mandated, the shutdown. And to some facilities, I know Jeff had some projects that did, so they were able to stay open. So what we did, and that's something we're planning, is we moved our manufacturing cells to locations near our assemblers' homes, right? So they could still work and with the proper, isolation and the proper, regulatory mandates that we had at the time. And that allowed us to keep on going. We're not going as fast and as efficiently as we were within our manufacturing facility, but it allowed us to finish the X-ray machines we were building at the time, the work in progress, allow us to start new machines, and allow us to keep on going. And then a few months later, we were able to come back and resume. And of course, we have a set of restrictions and set of new things we're doing, right? Like social distancing as much as possible, barriers, masks, face shields, and then the cleaning, right? Is that about saying what you're doing there, Jeff, in your facility?
Very similar. And I remember that was the last flight.
Yeah.
Well, we flew back from Florida, right? Seems like a long time ago.
Feels like forever ago, man.
I'm ready to get back on a plane, and probably will pretty soon here. But we had to implement a lot of improvements quickly. We run a 2-shift operation. So really step by step, the first thing we implemented was temperature taking at the entrance of our facility. So we actually had to place somebody outside of our door, 2 entrances, 18 hours a day, to cover everybody entering the facility between a first shift and a second shift. Second, mask wearing was required mandatory inside our facility. Third, we implemented sterilization. So we actually clean, almost 8 hours a day, split into 2 shifts, just somebody sterilizing every doorknob, every push plate, every touch surface, and in general computer use. In an electronic environment, that there are risks as well with cleaning and sanitizing. So you have to be very cautious and careful at your process. And then third, the social distancing. So in an environment where you have assembly lines, production lines, where people may come in contact with each other, we had to reset a few areas and make adjustments and modifications to some assembly lines, as well as installing barriers and separators to segregate people from each other. So we also segregated our first shift and second shift. So talk about efficiencies, right? In the past, we had a shift pass down, kind of a handshake between a first shift and a second shift. We had to segregate, and we put an hour split in between those 2 shifts to reduce the population of people entering our facility and exiting the facility at the same time. So obviously, a lot of challenges with those changes, but we've been very effective at transitioning and keeping people safe in the workplace. So happy about that, proud about that. People are going to contract this thing in the public, socially, around friends and family, but we've been really successful at keeping our employees safe. So it definitely takes diligence. And in the beginning, not every single person wore a mask properly, or necessarily follow the etiquette that was expected. So it took a lot of diligence across the board to ask our management team and people to constantly reassure everybody to be smart and safety first, really. So, but all in all, really proud and happy with the success we've had with the process. So
it's interesting. I keep wondering how many of these changes we made are going to stick, the years to come. It's because we, as a reaction, as a response to this event, right? We set all these things in motion and we changed the way we worked. So, for example, we went from an overlap of the shifts to a gap between the shifts, right? And you always thought, okay, an overlap is a requirement. You have to have it to hand off information from one shift to the next.
Right.
And you've proved you can work just as fine with a gap, right? So it's interesting to figure out, what are the things that are going to stick for the future? What are the things we're going to go back and revert, right? Because they were actually more efficient.
Absolutely. And much like right now, right? We're interviewing and having a conversation and a meeting electronically over a web face. We had to adapt a lot of meetings that were held in person with big teams. And they may be here in the facility in their office area, but we also perform a lot of it via Zoom or WebEx or whatever tools that we're using. So reducing, face-to-face meetings, it was a big challenge. You have to teach people to communicate just as effectively, even if they're not looking at someone, in the face. So, but definitely, I think we're going to adapt as needed in the future and probably continue utilizing all these tools and probably a mix. I'm sure we'll see where there'll be a mix where we'll in the future, mixing technology with in person and other forms of communication.
So over these months, like I said, back in March, there was a lot of concern because there was a lot of unknowns, right, about this virus, how it spreads, all these kinds of things. Like one of the things that was a big concern in March was contact, right?
Yeah.
If I hand you my pen and you take the pen and use it, are you going to get sick? So I know at Creative Electron, we had a much more strict, hey, stop sharing tools, right? Everyone had their own set already anyways, but occasionally you borrow someone's. We're a little bit more strict with that. Whereas now that we know so much more, are you finding that some of the restrictions you set in place back in March, have you reduced some of those, or are they all still in place just as an extra layer of care and caution?
100% still in place. And if anything, constantly reminding people of healthy habits.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. It doesn't hurt to wash them, 20 times a day instead of 10 a day. You never know. I think we think about this. We go out to the grocery store still, or some places that we have to go out. there are precautions being taken, but nobody knows what somebody's touched last. And right.
Yeah.
So really cleanliness. I think cleanliness is the biggest part. Hygiene is
Yeah.
one of the most important things for people in general as a human. So yeah, so no reduction whatsoever, no loosening of any expectations or processes. If anything, continuing to enforce, the rigidity with the new processes, the social distancing. I mean, in a facility, we had to mark a lot of visual controls as well. We had to put, floor markers to a time clock. People use a time clock, and it still requires a thumb punch. Per se, biometric things like that. So 6 foot distancing to line up at shift change, end of their shift. There are sterile wipes there, so you punched out, you wipe the clock, you throw it in the can. Next, a lot of those processes, I'm afraid, are going to be sustained for a long time to come.
Yeah. I know. It feels like in America, we're our hygiene habits are very different than other countries and cultures.
Sure.
People, I've had conversations with people who are just like grossed out by certain things that we just think are totally normal. And one of the things that many people have brought up is this matter of masks, right? There's a lot of cultures that you have a cold, you just wear a mask. That's what you do for the sake of those around you. And here in America, you're just like laughed at, right? Back a year ago, right? It's just like, that person looks so funny wearing a mask. And now it's like, we're wearing masks.
So many years ago, every time I traveled in Japan, it was very common.
Yeah.
Mask wearing was very common. You would board a train. A good percentage of people wore them, right? Whether it's for their own environment, their health. So, as a society, we're all evolving into something new. But some countries have had habits like this in the past for health reasons. So,
yeah. So I've had conversations with people here who are just like, I hope we make this change, right? This one sticks. I hope not that we wear masks 100%, but that we're
right.
It's normal-ish, right? It's not looked down upon. To take that extra precaution and wash your hands, like I said, 20 times a day instead of 10. Right? Use hand sanitizer more frequently. These kinds of things that fairly easy to do, right? Of course, as a company, now you're buying double the hand soap, you're buying double the hand sanitizer, all these cleaning wipes, right? If you're talking about wiping that fingerprint marker every single time and throwing that wipe away, that adds up.
It's not free. They are new costs that were not required before. So if you're paying service providers to clean for you, obviously you're increasing your costs and your overhead.
Yeah.
But we have to be creative at achieving the same thing, and also it is a business, so we have to identify the most efficient way to do those things as well, just like anything else.
Yeah, but it's also a matter of corporate responsibility, right? We talk about corporate responsibility here from time to time, and you can't be cavalier about these things, right? You have to follow protocol. You have to set them up and follow them like NeoTech and like we're doing, right? You can't disregard them, because I think one of the challenges that we have, and we all have, personal lives and professional lives, is this exhaustion, right? This quarantine exhaustion. People get tired. They're tired of wearing a mask. They're tired of, the not being able to hang out with their friends, not being able to go to the movies, to the restaurants, or whatever, bars, whatever they were doing before, right? And with this exhaustion, people lower their the guard, and that's dangerous, right? And that's why we see this waves up and down, right? And we're in the middle of one right now, and that's why San Diego just went back to purple zone, and the restaurants have to close.
Absolutely, the restaurants, the gyms, the churches, everything closing up again.
So as a business, we have to make sure that at least within our doors, right, we keep those protocols and we enforce them. You have to wear a mask. We have to wear face shield, depending on what kind of work you do. You have to do this. There's no other options. And for us, a lot of people are just working from home. I know you guys in NeoTech are doing the same. It's just we change the way we operate, right? We're not all together, shoulder to shoulder in the office anymore on a daily basis. We're just spread out.
Yeah, you have to adapt, and people that can work from home, it's a smart decision, and you adapt and you incorporate them into, web-based meetings and communicate, quite differently from the past. But it's working. It takes everybody working together for sure.
Yeah.
So how do you see things looking going forward there at NeoTech?
Well, I can tell you, I was on a customer call yesterday where they made the announcement that their entire staff is required to continue working from home through June of 2021. And wow. I was almost shocked. That's a forecast of 7 months away, right?
Yeah.
So now we're finally seeing in the news that we have some vaccines that'll be readily available, likely being distributed in December and then January. So I don't think any of us know what the environment's going to look like next June, but there's no doubt that this isn't going away anytime soon. Vaccination is a great thing that'll help people in high risk areas. Number one, care providers that are publicly exposed to this. Those should help a curve in a positive trend down mid next year, but we'll have to see. So yeah, so the protocols, the processes I don't see them changing anytime soon. We're living with this into 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. Don't stop doing the things you love. Don't stop living life. Just figure out how to do it safely, right? Yeah. I mean, if you want to hang out with your friends, do it outside, for example, instead of just, cramming together in a bar, right? So find a way to do it, but, don't stop living life waiting for, a silver bullet, a magic pill to show up and all of a sudden this whole thing is gone. Because the feeling that, okay, everything will be over by Thanksgiving. It will be over by Christmas. It will be over by, you keep setting those deadlines, and as those deadlines don't happen, just frustrates people so more, right? So just forget about deadlines. This is life, right? Enjoy life, live life the way it is now, just do it safely, right? Figure out what are the protocols that you can put in place so that, we can do things that you have to do safely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's emotionally dangerous for people to stay locked up and not try to live their life and be smart about it. Obviously, unless they're facing, a very high risk category and they have to really quarantine themselves long term. But yeah, we have to move forward as people, as a country, as an economy. Absolutely, it's very important that we adapt and overcome.
Yeah, I think it's. This change has really caused us all to change, right? We talked about this web platform that we're using, a virtual conferencing. Mm-hmm. These tools have been forced to take a big step forward, and we've all been forced to learn how to use them, right? How many different video chat tools do you use in a week? Right? 5, 6, 10. Like it's crazy, right?
I use 4 different tools on a common basis, believe it or not. Depending on the host. Yeah, absolutely.
But we're now comfortable with it, right? I just had a customer service calling one of our vendors for a software we use, and it's a video chat call, right? 8 months ago, or a year ago, wouldn't have been that. It would have been a phone call. Maybe we would have had a video call, but it wouldn't have been our faces. But it actually provided a much better customer service experience because now I'm kind of in that guy's home.
Yeah.
Virtually, I'm in his house. I could tell he was at home, at a stand-up desk, talking to me. But it was a much better customer service experience for me through that video channel. And that service provider never would have done that unless we just kind of all had to. We all got used to it. Again, a year ago, people wouldn't want to be on video with you, right?
Right.
I don't want my background to be seen, things like that. And now it's just normal, right? My kids come in, they interrupt video calls all the time within the company, with customers, whatever. And we're all just okay with it.
The dog barks, the cat runs across the keyboard,
Stop apologizing, right?
Size and environments.
Don't apologize about your dog, the long guy outside.
Yeah. That's a good point. We have adapted. So we have purchased literally handheld devices with microphones to mount our phones on, kind of, like vlogging devices, right? At every facility. So we're using those for a lot of interaction, believe it or not.
Wow.
Our auditors are not auditing on site for quality system audits annually. We have performed 2 of those now via video tour. We actually engaged with the employees where the auditor could actually ask questions, Can you show me your procedure? Can you show me this process? So talk about adapting, right? We're doing that via a video tour and back online and video conferencing and sharing documents and and information and still following the same process, quality system audit. But we've had to adapt and figure out how to do that successfully using technology and remote process. And we have a Gemba process. So our company, just from a lean culture, we perform a Gemba every morning. We had to look at that and say, how do we do this safely, differently? Yeah. So we actually walk our Gemba, a limited team, every morning, but we also record it video, and people that are remote can interact and ask questions and engage via the same process. So we're literally vlogging internally only and walking our process and engaging certain management team members in our daily Gemba. And awesome. Reducing a smaller population, but still performing the same processes to ensure that we're, on target with our schedule and we're efficient as needed. So,
that's so much more efficient for the auditor, right? There's
absolutely
the front day of travel, flight or whatever, and the at home.
Not to mention,
cut down 2 days of that, 5-day job.
And think about it. We save the T&E, the travel and expenses as well as part of an audit process. So it's purely virtual. They don't have to leave their home and they can still perform the same process. So all in all, it's efficient.
I mean, how many times did we go, travel, get on a plane, hotel, rental car for a 1.5 hour meeting, right? And fly back home.
Right.
Right.
It can happen.
And I think this past 10 months evolved us as a society 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And it allowed us to, as you said, you drop the barriers, right? So, people that we would meet in trade shows, remember? Oh yeah, I'll see that. You see you at the trade show. I would just have a Zoom conversation and that became lowered the barrier, right? So those connections can happen at any time, any place, there's no expectation that you're going to happen somewhere in the future. You just have to make it happen now.
Yeah.
So from that end, I don't think that's going to change. I think a lot of those, once, companies and once we realize that we're much more efficient, if you want to have that 1.5 hour meeting on Zoom and then you can have dinner with your family, you don't have to go to a hotel room and then fly next morning.
Absolutely.
That's, much better than, much better just to have a Zoom meeting or.
Yeah. Although the traffic last week didn't feel like people were working from home.
Yeah, it's back. I mean, as you know, our facility, we have a nice view of the highway. And March, April, May, it was just desert. It was kind of depressing to see at 5 o'clock, just a desert on the 78. Now it's already backed up, Jeff. It's back.
Yeah, it's back to pre-existing times, I guess. Traffic's back. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So all in all, I think like you mentioned, we're definitely adapting, utilizing the tools and technologies that we have available, and finding ways to continue being productive and still engage with customers, suppliers, in ways that are needed. Just doing it a lot more socially distanced and segregated from others. So
yeah. I think even the like Bill was talking about trade shows, right? Obviously, they've been 2020. They've just been decimated. Some are planning for 2021, and as they come and ask us, it's kind of like,
that
was a big expense, right? I was talking to one other manufacturer in the SMT space, and they're going to save like over $1 million by not doing this big annual trade show. Like, well. Okay.
That's real money, if you think about it. That's real money.
That's real money.
What can I do with $1 million? So a lot of these changes, and if you see that your business is doing just fine without this thing that you felt like you always had to have that just got yanked out of your hands, maybe you realize, hey, I'm doing okay with that. Without that, I see I think there's going to be a lot of other effects of things that had to stop. They're going to try to come back, and we're all just going to kind of think, do I need to do that anymore? Right?
Yeah.
That really helpful. Like Bill said, the trade shows were a great time to say, hey, Jeff, I'll see you at APEX, right? Mm-hmm. I'll see you there. It'll be great to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Now it's like a video call is nearly the same as being in front of someone and grabbing lunch, right? A phone call is obviously a step away from that. A text conversation back and forth is a big step away from that. But our social need and keeping in touch with people, acquaintances, work associates, all those kinds of things, we realize we can do without the travel, without the big trade shows, without the other things that we used to do. We found a way to do it well, even easier, right?
But where are you going to get the $10 hot dogs?
Yeah. Not at a Coliseum, not at a convention hall, right?
You always go to the Del Mar Fair. I'm sure they'll have or at least that.
I think they're out as well, but
yeah, not for now.
For sure. I mean, the important thing is that everybody is learning to adapt, create new norms and identify ways to be successful and get the job done in a lot of different environments. So let's hope this vaccine brings a reduction this next year and reduces a lot of this. But I don't think the protocols and the processes we put in place are going to go away anytime soon, honestly.
Yeah.
And you talk about the costs of the, of this sterilization and some of this PPE. I mean, if you think about it, they are useful to avoid, to keep people safe with COVID, but also a bunch of other, just the flu.
Good point.
Sure.
People are not getting as sick as they used to, right? Because we're just not cross-contaminating everyone anymore. So I think some of the protocols are just going to stick. They're good for people, good for business as well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see this. We commonly have a flu season every fall, right?
Yeah.
Is it worse? Is it less? It could be a reduction from the average based on all the PPE
Well, it's already mid-November,
right?
You've had the flu. I mean, I haven't had a cold yet.
Very few employees out for it as well.
In late August, early September, and I just have a cold of some sort until November, December, and my kids in virtual school. So
well, it's a big thing. Kids are not going to school.
Yeah, it's huge. Right? I mean, as far as illness or needing to take time off, not a problem. My kid isn't getting me sick anymore. So, I think all those kinds of things where if you're not picking up the common cold or the flu at work, it's going to help, right?
Sure.
And those costs of sick employees very well probably outweigh the cost of wiping down the fingerprint scanner and other measurements we're taking, right? And we just never did the study. No one ever wanted to do it, right? And again, COVID just said, hey, you have to do this now.
Here we go.
And we were learning, maybe this kind of stuff is actually helpful outside of the COVID world.
Absolutely.
I think what really impresses me with all this is that we are, as a society, we're still going forward, right? This hasn't stopped the world, right? It hasn't stopped the country. We're still doing what we need to do. We just found new ways to do it, right? And this innovative culture that we have is saying, okay, hey, we need to do this. And this small company called Zoom that no one had heard of before is now like the de facto video conferencing tool because they were there at the right time and they were able to step into that space when the need really showed up. Right?
They obviously adapted their bandwidth model.
Exactly.
Definitely had to change that. All right, Jeff, really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
Great talking to you again.
You as well. David, Bill, great to see you guys.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Bill.
You as well. We'll keep moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.